Well, welcome to the Ocean Studio here as part of the Yahowah vlog. My pleasure to be with you. We're also here with the Wookiee. I've got Asher at my feet, so we've got a full cast of characters. Rich at the controls today. Thank you for listening. We're going to return to the conclusion. We're now just past the halfway mark, and the uh, beautiful psalm or song that Dowd wrote. This is part of his restoration, where he is acknowledging that God has been kind to him, has chosen to favor him, and he's back in good graces with Yahowah and ready to commence the mission at hand. I think we're doing a little adjustment here of the angle on our camera so that I guess we had a slight mishap, but hopefully it's good now. Anyway, we're going to return in the midst of the ninth Mizmowr. It's beautifully written. One of the things that we learned when we were last year, I think it was on Friday midday, was that uh, Dowd said that he was celebrating the death of a son, and we were having a heck of a time trying to figure who that might be and why he would do that, because he, of course, cried uncontrollably over the death of Absalom, even though that was something actually to be celebrated. Absalom was a horrible son and led a terrible coup against his father, and it just he needed to go. Um, uh, Dowd was very sad, as he would naturally expect him to be, with the death of his firstborn son. The son that lived to be an adult was also killed, but that was such a tragic situation. He would never celebrate that. He was killed because he had raped one of Dowd's daughters. Son, I mean, involved in incest, raping a daughter. A double mistake. So he would not have celebrated that. And we know that there'd be no way that he would celebrate the death of the child that he had initially through Bathsheba when it was stricken and died within weeks of birth. So we were scratching our heads saying, gosh, this is really unusual for him to be celebrating the death of a son. But the son that whose death he's celebrating can only be one of two individuals. It's either he's celebrating his own in the sense of he's going to offer his Bashar body as the Passover lamb, and he recognized that as the Son of God, that is an exceedingly worthy thing to do and absolutely worth celebrating. But he's not speaking of himself in first person here. And so while that's interesting symbolically, uh, it's more likely that he is celebrating the death of the son, second unto him, if you will, who is giving his life on Towrah. Again, his physical body is not offering his soul. His soul will live on, as did Dowd's when he fulfilled Passover. But he is celebrating the life of Yada, his adopted father, actually, who has been so instrumental in his recovery, as we are learning through the 31st Mizmowr or Mashal of Proverb, and as we'll learn through all of the Proverbs. And of course, are being reacquainted with that reality through the 89th Mizmowr, which is spectacular in this regard. So I think that's what he's celebrating, because he not only was instrumental in helping Dowd recover, but also instrumental in offering his life at a important time that there is a mortal remnant of Yisrael ready to accept Dowd upon his return. So let's just talk a bit about who Dowd is, about who will be there when he returns, and why all this matters before we reconvene in the psalm. There is such clutter in the world today, largely as the result of religion, such that almost no one, I would say there are far less than 1,000 people on the planet, and the number could well be into the very few hundreds who know and accept Yahweh's pronouncements that it's Dowd, who the world calls David. It's just a mispronunciation of his name. It's Dowd. He is the Messiah. And when there is a discussion of a Messiah of any import with God, it's Dowd, period. End of conversation. There are no others. Which means that there could not have been a Jesus Christ. There's no mention of a Jesus in any prophecy. There's no mention of a Christ in any prophecy. And the only prophecy that even suggests there will be a returning Messiah was spoken by Dowd as Gabriel, and he was speaking of himself. And he was actually addressing the fulfillment of Chag Matsah. The day that he gave is the fulfillment of the 7 days of Chag Matsah in 33 CE or 4,000 Yah. That can't apply to this mythical Jesus Christ because he had nothing to do with Chag Matsah. Nothing. And if you don't understand Chag Matsah and you make no mention of it, then it can't be you. So there is no Jesus Christ. It's all a product of identity theft. It's Dowd who's the Messiah. There's this myth that if you were to ask who's the Son of God, and 90% of people would offer Jesus. Even if they're Muslim, they'll recognize the claim that Jesus is the Son of God. But that's not true either, not according to God. According to God, he's only one man that he overtly states is important to recognize as his son. He calls him his Bakor, firstborn son, and he says, he is my son, I am his father, 3 times. All 3 times he names him. Even when we read in Yashayah that a child will be born, a son will be given, the name that's ascribed to that son is right there in the text, staring you in the face. It's Dowd. There was no Jesus as a son of God. It's Dowd. According to God, he said it innumerable times. I mean, there's at least 4 that we've covered. And he says it of no one else. Likewise, according to God, the chosen one is Dowd. The king who is returning is Dowd. The one who enabled the benefits of the covenant, therefore fulfilled Chag Matsah and Bakodim, is Dowd. The prophet is Dowd. The one who is called Elyon, the total projection of the hand and influence of God in our world. Elyon is Dowd. The greater luminary of Genesis 4, the 4th day of creation in Genesis 1 is Dowd. The tree of lives in the garden, Dowd. The prophet who will be from among your people, who will be so extraordinary that you need to look forward to and appreciate, that is presented in Deuteronomy 18 of the Towrah, Verbatim. It's Dowd. He's the one. It's just the way it is. To claim anything else is to call God a liar. Something that he says emphatically in the 89th Psalm. So Dowd is the former king of Israel. He's the Messiah. He's the Son of God. He's the prophet, great defender of his people. He's the chosen one, and he's the one in his second of 3 lives fulfilled. Passover, Matzah, and firstborn children, Bakodim. He wrote about his fulfillment of Passover, speaking of specifically how crucifixion kills. Medically, 3,000 years before we understood that, 600 years before crucifixion even existed, 500 years before there was even an inkling of Rome. It's in the 22nd Mizmowr, again in the 88th Mizmowr. You're welcome to read them. It should have been over right then. As soon as we found amongst the Dead Sea Scrolls evidence that this preceded the actual crucifixion that's recorded in 33 CE, the myth of Jesus should have been over. Dowd wrote it in first person. And so really the greatest, most important discovery in human history pursuant to life, pursuant to who we are, why we're here, pursuant to a relationship with God, pursuant to everything that actually matters, is that Dowd is the Messiah, the chosen one, the Son of God, our Savior, who fulfilled Chag Matsah and Verbatim in his second of three lives. And he's returning in 2033 on Yom Kippurim, which is October 2nd at sunset in Jerusalem, which is year 6,000 as King of forevermore and of everywhere. There is no greater discovery than that. And it's the one that we have made manifest to you and proven in the 35 books that I have written under the title Yahowah. They're all available free for you to read at yahowah.com, but you better get at it because you don't have a lot of time left. And this next harvest is a mature grain, and you're not going to be mature unless you really devote yourself to it, and you start now. I ask nothing from you. There is nothing you can give me. I'm not interested in anything. We do not take donations. I'm not paid by anyone. I am just here to be of service to those who want to know who Yahowah is and how the covenant's benefits are brought to you by Dowd David. So that's who he is. And that's the realization is then there was no Jesus. It's all a lie. And I proved that in the 5 volumes of the series called Twistianity. Nearly 4,000 pages of evidence presented against the Christian religion that prove emphatically that it's not true. And that Dowd is the answer. All free again at yahowah.com. Now, who am I? God had a lot to say about the role I'm playing, whether or not you want to agree or not, whether it turns you off or builds your confidence is not up to me. That's up to you. But I can tell you God had a lot to say about the role I'm playing. I didn't choose it. I was chosen for it. And it's everything from Nakar and Nakri, which is observant foreigner, to Chodar, which is the limb of the tree that serves as the tree of knowledge, reestablishing the access to the tree of lives in the garden. He is presented as the voice of God. He is presented as the Bashar, the herald. He is presented as Yada, as one who knows. And there's upwards of 100 descriptive titles pursuant to him. Throughout, God speaks of him as the final Zeroah that is going to cultivate these 2 remaining harvests. He is the Adam of Parah who will lay down his life on behalf of the remnant of Yisrael on Towrah, September 24th of 2033, just 10 days before Dowd's return with Yahowah. He happens to be the fellow that reintroduced Yahowah's name and proved that it is pronounced Yahowah. Again, 35 books, all free, all for your perusal. They are there in PDF and page turner formats at yahowah.com. They're free to you. We won't even track whether or not you've been to the site. We don't ask for your email. We ask for nothing from you. You're free to come and go as you would like. You can even buy the paperback books royalty free at Amazon. All your option. That's who I am. Now, who are you? Are you someone who is actively involved in what we're doing, such that you can claim to be part of the covenant family, that you have been observant, you've paid attention to what God has offered, what he has asked in return, you understand and have accepted the 5 terms and conditions of the covenant, you have attended the invitations knowing exactly how the fulfillment transpired for Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, so that you receive the benefits of the covenant. You're anticipating the Yahowah harvest because you are mature in your standing with God. That you're one of those who listens, who reads the books, have read them, most of them, certainly many of them, some of them of you many, many times through, that you're ready for that harvest. And how many of you there are, not my business to know. It's just determination in that regard, and I look forward to seeing you on the Towrah harvest, because, well, we've got a lot of work to do, and I'm excited about the team that I know is committed and that is aware of exactly who Yahweh is and what He expects of us and what He wants to achieve. We're ready to roll up our sleeves and go to work, if you will. One of the things that I want to make clear, however, is that there is no magic formula here. There's no Cliff Notes version. There's no making this easy. I was talking to Rich just before the program, and he was bemoaning some of those now who haven't read a book in years and listen on and off during programs, but really make very little contribution. And what they want is to be spoon-fed. They want to be brought up to speed. They want definitive answers on things like, which Shabuah is it going to be? What do I need to do to prepare? And I don't even want to know. I want to proceed like we'll get as much as we possibly can done between now and May 22nd of this year. If there's not the imposition of a Islamic State carved out of the heart of Israel by this time as a result of the malfeasance of either the United States or Israel in attacking Iran, that leads to them suing in some form for some kind of settlement, and it ends that way, or the petrodollar demands it, then we're going to be Towrah of the following year, which is, Shabuah of the following year, which is the 11th of June of that year. I'm going to do everything I can to have the stamina to continue, and there's a lot to do over the next year plus 100 days, if that's the case, or we'll have as much done as we can over the next 100 days, and then rejoin the effort come Passover in 2030, so that we can broadcast the message really in supernatural fashion from the Temple Mount in Jerusalem over 3.5 years, leading to the Towrah harvest and to the return of that mortal remnant of Yisrael, and our work to cause them to do a better job living up to God's expectations as we return to the garden and have an opportunity to serve as mentors and teachers for that mortal remnant that enters the celebration of Sukkah after Dowd returns as king. So that gives you kind of an idea as to where we are and the overall picture of things. We're going to do our best to keep you on track. I think my Wookiee wants to get down, so we'll accommodate him, even if he's stepped here a little bit on Asher on the way down, and then we're going to rejoin so that this is who we're talking about, and this is the event that he is speaking about. And as you can see, as we rejoin, I think this is the 13th statement of the 9th Mizmowr. This is the last psalm that is presented in volume 1 of Coming Home, should you want to follow along. And it reads, "You have chosen to be generous to and to favor me." Chanan ane. This term is used a lot in association with the relationship between Yahweh and Dowd. And God chose Dowd. This is his guy, the one that he anointed as Messiah, the one he said, "I have chosen above all and beyond all others," the one that he claims is his son, the one he's going to bring back as king. This is a rather important designation, the one that Yahowah describes his generosity towards, his favoritism to. It's almost always the same fella, and it's Dowd David. Something to think about, particularly in a world that is obsessed with the myth of Jesus Christ, who is never mentioned. By choice, this is again presented in the imperative mode, written in second person, which expresses the will of the person being spoken to. By choice, you have seen my tremendous dedication to accomplishing the mission of being a witness and my frustration over the abuse that I've endured as a result of responding to and accomplishing the goal. Oh boy, isn't that ever true? It's one ani. And one is from ana. And as ana, it has a light and dark side, which I've tried to incorporate in this translation. Ana primarily means to be responsive, to answer, to reply. These are very positive things. And on the negative side, it is to be afflicted, to be humiliated, to be injured in some way, to be abused. And so Dowd had volunteered to be injured during Pesach, with his body serving as the Passover lamb, to be abused in the sense that he was willing to carry our guilt into hell, into Sheol, on Matzah. And he was replying and saying to God, I'm going to do this. You know that I'm committed to answering your call in this way. And I know you're pleased with my dedication to accomplishing the mission and serving as this witness and getting this done in response, and knowing how difficult it's going to be. And the biggest difficulty of all of serving as the Passover lamb and then carrying our guilt into hell on Matzah was the response of his people. Paul, as a Jew, created the myth of Christianity to rob Dowd of everything that he had accomplished and even all of his titles. And Rabbi Akiba did the same thing with Bar Kokhba. So now the most popular religion in the world is abusive towards what Dowd accomplished. Matter of fact, the whole myth of Christ is anti-Christ. Jesus is not the Christ. If you want to pretend that Christ is a translation of Messiah, then the whole Jesus myth is exceedingly anti-Messiah, because the Messiah is Dowd, and Christianity exists to rob Dowd of everything he is known by and has accomplished. So the religion itself is anti-Christ, should you want to believe that Christ is a substitute for Messiah. So this is I think it's a very profound thought. And it says that God is protecting Dowd from those who dislike and shun him. And while there were those during his life, and he had to overcome a coup d'etat against him, and of course then there was for years Shaul, who opposed him, that during that time he had to overcome that. But the big crisis really for him was agreeing to fulfill Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, and then have most of the world turn against him. And it wasn't until just 10 years ago when I came to realize that Dowd was the Messiah, Son of God, who fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bakodim, and could reestablish his resume and his reputation, that everyone disliked him and shunned him for these reasons. And Dowd brought this on himself to a very large extent. The Bathsheba episode and the subsequent killing of Uriah, the light of Yah, her Bathsheba's husband, and then Dowd getting mad at Yahowah for leaving him as a result of this, putting him in a long time out and not even talking to him for the longest period of time, created the opportunity that Christians and rabbinic Judaism's proponents needed to replace him, so that there's a replacement Messiah coming for those practicing Judaism, not to Dowd returning. And so that there is a replacement Messiah in Christianity being Jesus. But the fact of the matter is, God never replaced Dowd. Dowd ultimately returned to Yahowah, and the relationship is as it is being explained here in this Mizmowr. He says, so as to lift me up on high, honoring and exalting me. It's Dowd who is the one who is lifted on high. He is the one honored and exalted, which is the opposite of what Christianity claims, where they claim that he's in his grave, dead and buried and excluding from heaven. Therefore, the claim of Christianity is every promise that God made to Dowd applies to the myth of Jesus Christ. Well, if that's the case, then why didn't God say that all of these titles and accolades and prophecies apply to Jesus Christ instead of saying that they all apply to Dowd? Well, that's one of the flaws in Christianity, is it not? And it said, anyway, from the gates of death is how it ends. Mizmowr song to be sung, 9:13. And that's where we ended our program. I think it was Friday afternoon. So as we continue on, the next statement reads, as a result, I have chosen to recount and to proclaim, providing a written record of all of your superlative accomplishments and adorable characteristics, and a song of appreciation within the gates of the environs of Zion, of the signs posted along the way. I will take great pleasure in, rejoicing in, and celebrating your liberation, deliverance, and salvation. Psalm 9:14. Well, once again, you can't be a thoughtful, rational, informed individual and apply this to a mythical Jesus Christ. Because guess what happened? Jesus never wrote anything down, did he? So the written record of someone choosing to speak of the greatness of Yahowah in this subject, which is him fulfilling the Moed Mikre for our benefit, and of Yahowah choosing to favor him and honor him in this way. The only written record of all of that was written by Dowd. Again, read any one of the first 35 Mizmowr. They're all on this subject. Celebrate the 22nd, the 88th, and of course, the most spectacular of all is the 89th. And they all say that the person that God chose and that he worked with, his co-worker, the Messiah, the chosen one, the Son of God, who enabled the benefits of the covenant, and therefore fulfilled Chag Matsah and Bekodim, is Dowd David. And he is the one who wrote so many of these Psalms, most all of them, proclaiming this, fulfilling this very prophecy. And no one else can make that claim, and it cannot be made of anyone else. And he's saying of your superlative accomplishments. In Christianity, they won't even say his name. In Judaism, they won't even say God's name. How can you speak of God's superlative accomplishments and his adorable characteristics and a song of appreciation if you erase his name? It's Dowd. Again, this is within the doorway of the environs of Zion. And there is no understanding of what Zion represents in Christianity. It's a complete abomination the way it's presented in Judaism. Zion is described in the word itself. It means signs posted along the way. Zion itself is the ridgeline of Mount Moriah as it comes from the Temple Mount down to the city of Dowd. And that is where Yahowah has posted for us to read symbolically these signs that are along the way from Dowd's home to the covenant home on top of the Temple Mount. And it's knowing them that you come to understand what Yahowah accomplished in this place with his beloved son. So he goes and he says, I will take great pleasure in rejoicing in and celebrating your Yeshua, your liberation, your deliverance, your salvation. It's from the verb yasha, and it is Yahowah in collaboration with Dowd that provided our salvation. There is no salvation whatsoever under any circumstance for anyone at any time, anywhere, apart from what Yahowah and Dowd accomplished in fulfilling Pesach, Matzah, and Bakurim in year 4000 Yah in 33 CE. Passover opens the door to life. So if you want to enjoy eternal life, you have to capitalize on Passover. Matzah removes our guilt so that we appear innocent before God, as Dowd carried our guilt and deposited in Sheol on Matzah. And Bakurim is the recognition that as a result of Pesach and Matzah, we become the very children of God. It means firstborn children. This is God's means of liberation, of salvation. It continues through Shabuah, which is a harvest of standing grain. It's upcoming. And then 7 years from there of the gleaning of Towrah and the sacrifice of the Adam of Parah to purge the mortal remnant of Yisrael, who will have returned for the occasion into Jerusalem, so that they can witness and celebrate the king's return, Dowd's return, with Yahowah on Kippurim. And then the earth is transformed into the conditions experienced in Eden, and we have 1,000 years to enjoy the garden and learn from our prior mistakes to see the proper response to God modeled so that we earn his respect, and that he then can liberate us from the constraints of our physical bodies and this planet, and we'll go off and explore the universe. This is what he is celebrating. So, guess who's coming back? Might it be the same guy who is neither dead nor buried? And sure seems as if he is going to get the last laugh. Is it not true? And it's Dowd. So let it be known that many of Yahweh's greatest accomplishments were achieved with his beloved son, his chosen one, the king, the one who is returning, our Savior, Dowd, by working alongside his beloved son. These, which are the most satisfying things that God has ever done, were accomplished. And just as Yahowah has lifted his son up and praise, extolling him above all others, Dowd is returning the favor. They had a mutual love for one another, particularly upon Dowd's return to Yahowah after the meltdown of the censure over Bathsheba. And this is something that I've mentioned so many programs, but I just want to reemphasize it. There is this religious perception of perfection that is hauntingly troubling. And there's this concept that, well, they had to have a perfect Adam of Parah to serve as the sacrifice of the red heifer. So let's go find one that's perfect. No such thing as a perfect bull or heifer. Or that the Passover lamb has to be perfect. So you think they were scrounging around Egypt to say, all right, who of you is perfect? Come here, bah, bah, calling all perfect sheep. No, there is no such thing. The word tamim that is rendered perfect in so many English Bibles doesn't mean that at all. It's based on tamam. It means to finish the job. It means to do what needs to be done to accomplish the mission. It is to fulfill the prophecy. Dowd wasn't perfect, and God doesn't want him to be perfect, because if you were perfect, there'd be nothing to do. There'd be no place to go, explore, learn, benefit from. There would be no way for you to grow. You couldn't be anything more than you were born. No reason to learn, no reason to accomplish anything. Nothing. Be no interest, because everybody would be the same. Perfect is stupid. If you were perfect, you could never make a mistake and learn from it. You could never trip and fall and prove that you could get up. There'd be no character, no substance, no evidence you could ever be trusted. perfect is a waste of time. God is not interested in it. What he's interested in is finishing the job. Dowd agreed to finish the job. He fulfilled Chag Matsah and Makudim. That's finishing the job. He's returning as king, taking responsibility for everybody going forward. That's finishing the job. So Dowd is the most ideal from that point of view because he's finishing. That's what God wants of us. That's what didn't happen in Eden. When Adam and Chawah made a mistake, they continued to double down. They didn't ever take responsibility. They never improved. They never got back up and got going again. That's what Dowd did. That's what makes him the right person for this job. And so when Dowd returns with Yahowah, he's going to be focused on the business at hand. He is going to be there to model what it is to be a child of God. His lyrics and his life will continue to serve as a living testament to all that Yahowah intends for his children. Wonderfully imperfect from the beginning, Dowd's example exists as proof for us that the Torah's guidance is what makes us appear so innocent before God. No, it can't be improved. It's God's way, and thus not ours to alter. This is his plan. And Dowd and he together collaborated to make it so. It's ludicrous to dismiss it, an abomination to change it as it's changed in Christianity and Judaism. Don't do that. Listen to what God said. Capitalize upon it. Don't change it. Now, this will all transpire within proximity of Tsiyon. There is no merit, therefore, to the Vatican, or should there ever be antagonism towards Zionists. God's blessings were not transferred to Christians or Americans, and they will never be. Well, Dowd has been delivered from death and freed from guilt. The same is not true with the religious. So this being the case, it literally is impossible to justify the absurd notion that the benefits to Yisrael, the promises to Israel, were somehow transferred to a Gentile church. Not only is there no statement suggesting that, not even one hinted at it throughout the Torah, prophets, and Psalms, God expressly says exactly the opposite. So here we are. The Gentiles, the people with different ethnicities within religious and political affiliations based upon pagan practices, essentially non-Yisraelites, with an aversion to Hebrew, who congregate together and act like zombies. They will have sunk down, and have been embedded into the pit of destruction, which they have fashioned into a trap. Doesn't much sound like we're passing on the promises that God made to Yisrael for them to inherit this world and the universe, everything that God has to give and all the benefits of the covenant, and that ultimately a remnant of Yisrael will be allowed back into the garden conditions as the earth is terraformed to that status. When everything points to a return of Yisrael, Dowd is inspired to write that the Goyim will have sunk down and embedded themselves into a pit of destruction. And it says that they fashioned it as their own trap to destroy themselves. And then they concealed the evidence that it was a trap. Their feet and their every step are captured in it. And this is the nature of Christianity and, as well as Judaism. It's a trap for the unthinking. It's so easy to disprove both religions. I've written 10 books doing so. I mean, I have pounded 1,000 nails into the coffin of Christianity and 10,000 into the carcass of Islam. No one knows and understands the myth of Jesus or of Allah, the idiocy of the Quran or New Testament better than I do. I'm here to say I prove it. Go read either Twistianity, the 5 volumes, or the 5 volumes of Goddamn Religion, free at yahowah.com if you don't think I'm telling you the truth. I know the nature of these lies, and I have exposed and condemned them. And I did so for your benefit, because you cannot approach God. You cannot capitalize on anything that Dowd has offered or that I am sharing with you. You can't be part of the covenant. You cannot enter heaven unless you come to know what it is that I have learned. And that's why I offer it freely to you. So this is a blanket statement, which means that most Gentiles will descend into the pit of destruction, their own souls either incarcerated or annihilated. As such, the 3 leading Gentile belief systems, Christianity, Marxism, socialist, secular humanism, if you will, and Islam, are nothing more than enticing traps for billions of souls. Supporting them makes one an accomplice to murder if the advocacy is premeditated. Listen, I'm not saying that most believers are going to hell. I think most believers in Christianity, Marxism, socialism, and Islam will just, their souls will cease to exist at the end of their mortal lives. But those who act upon those religions, who promote them, who use them to promote all means of anti-Semitism, and who attack Yahowah and his Towrah and his people, that's why hell was built. It's not a place of torture, but it's a place of eternal incarceration, which it'll be well deserved. You will have dug your own grave, to quote the king. So according to God, the most popular traps for human souls are of man's doing, something that the leaders of these popular religious and political institutions have crafted to seize control of the masses, depositing them in a way that impoverishes them. Yahowah is also revealing that the heads of these institutions have kept their intentions secret, that they have acted in a clandestine manner, such that they are not only deliberately deceiving those who believe them, as was the case of Paul and Peter in Christianity, Akiba and Maimonides in Judaism, and Muhammad and Islam. They realize, all of them, that if the truth were known, they would have no followers. And as a matter of fact, during their lives, Muhammad was almost always alone, and virtually no one believed him. The few that he attracted at the end were attracted because of the promises of lust in this life and the next, and of booty in this life and the next. And they were in it for money and sex, not because there was something in the Quran that sounded intelligent, because almost everyone that listened to Muhammad rejected him. The same thing was true with Paul. Everyone who heard Paul, according to his own writings, rejected him. So it's something to think about, huh? Yahowah is not only the antithesis of the gods that men have fabricated in their own image. He is remarkably different and vastly superior. Yahowah has become recognizable and knowable. Yada, Yahowah. That's what this says. Yada, Yahowah. It's the title on the cover of every one of the 35 books I have written. It's the name of the website. Yahowah.com will take you to Yada, Yahowah. Yada means to know, to be familiar with, to recognize, to acknowledge. Yahowah is God's one and only name. Yada, Yahowah. By the means to exercise good judgment and resolve disputes. The way that you come to Yada, know, recognize, acknowledge, respect, and understand Yahowah is by mishpat, by exercising good judgment and making intelligent decisions. Um, in rabbinic Judaism, they'll tell you that it's not a mishpat, which would be to ponder the implications of the instructions uh, pursuant to making intelligent decisions. A shafat is a judge. It's the process of deciding, of, as I say, of exercising good decisions. And the prefix means to ponder the implications of that. They will tell you that a mishpat, which they'll spell differently just because they don't like Yahweh's approach to words, is a law or rule that they have somehow come to impose on Jews. But it's not the case. These are instructions that you should consider. And if you think about them rationally, they will lead you to Yada Yahweh. I chose to be logical, systematic, thorough, and my close examination and careful consideration of Yahweh's testimony, deriving what I could from the Dead Sea Scrolls and correcting the Masoretic where the Dead Sea Scrolls testimony was not extant, and removed all of the diacritical markings and therefore the religious malfeasance as well as religious definitions, so that you could yada Yahweh as I have come to know Yahweh. That is the purpose of the yadayah.com website and all the books there. And the process that I used was mishpat. I pondered the implications of making rational and logical decisions, which I then acted upon and engaged in, Asha, which is exactly what this says. You yada Yahweh by making informed decisions and then acting upon them and engaging in what you have learned. Go where the words lead is the best example of that. Those guilty of being wrong, he says, Rasha, those who are misled and who mislead the mistaken, who are religious and fraudulent, are ensnared by the deeds of their own hands. They meditate and reflect on this. The nature of religion. The religious use their religious slogans to justify their religion. When you tell them that, listen, Paul admitted he was demon possessed. He committed virtually every rational fallacy there is in his letters. He never once quoted his claimed caricature of Jesus Christ, never once quoted him, which means he couldn't represent him. And every time that he tried to cite evidence from the Torah and prophets from Yahweh, he never mentioned Yahweh's name, never credited Yahweh with that resource, and never presented the quote accurately. Always pulled it from a broader statement, always twisted it, misrepresented it, misquoted God to give the opposite impression of what God actually said if you read it completely, correctly rendered and in context. And so they will take the words of Paul and use them to justify Paul's lies. It just, you want to shake your head and say, how in the world is it that so many people can be so foolish and throw away their own souls? So since God can be known, there is no reason for faith. Since the means to understand him is through exercising good judgment, believing is superfluous. Therefore, even if they were 1% right, which they're not, but let's just pretend they were, still a counterfeit. And that would be the nature of Judaism and Christianity. It's a counterfeit of what God said. You know what a counterfeit bill is worth? Jail time. Beyond all of this, Yahweh is stating that he is best known by the way he has chosen to resolve the kind of disputes which separate men and women from him, which is through his mikra, his invitations to be called out and meet, Pesach, Matzah, Bakodim, Shabua, Teruah, Kippurim, and Sukkah. He is revealing that he planned and then personally acted on these appointed days. Therefore, our quest to more fully understand and then capitalize upon his involvement in the 7 mikra, validated. It is by seeing what God has done for us that we find ourselves in a relationship with him. Men, on the other hand, are trapped by their own devices, according to Dowd, and he's right. Religions are a snare designed to control the unwary, causing those who are caught within them to be deprived of life and liberty. And that's what Yahweh intends, but not what religion does. Claiming to have been appointed to serve God, religious institutions deprive their converts and believers of what God is actually offering, all of them. Those guilty of religious malfeasance, Dowd would continue, of Rasha, those who are invalid, fraudulent, and unethical, will be turned away unto Sheol, along with every Gentile nation and institution which disrespects God. Psalm 9:17. You know, you have ultimately three choices with what I'm sharing with you. You can choose to ignore it. You can continue to believe in Christianity, Islam, socialism, MAGA-itism, whatever it is that trips your trigger. You can be a conspiratorialist. And at the end of your life will just be squandered and your soul will dissipate into nothingness. You were given free will, you were given a neshama conscience, you were given the opportunity and you blew it. And so there's no reward and there is no penalty for you. Your soul simply ceases to exist. Or two, you can choose to promote your religion over the word of God or your politics. You can be one of those keyboard jihadists on X or on Facebook or on Instagram, and you can condemn the very word of God. You can condemn me for speaking for God. There's plenty of people that are doing that. But those who are guilty of such malfeasance, who are invalid, who are unethical, who are being deceitful, who are flat out wrong, well, according to this inspired text, they have turned themselves away from God such that they are headed to Sheol. You know, we look today, we saw a woman who is preoccupied with trying to slander me, who I don't even know, never did know, never met. And yet that's consumed her. And when she started posting just despicable things, and then was supported by a psychopath that decided that she would also make that her life's mission to beguile anyone who would follow her. They've gone back dark again now. And she started supporting this psychotic woman. You know, I spoke out. I said, you know, what they're saying is untrue, and they've written themselves into a terrible position. But the fact is, they shouldn't be concerned with what I have come to think of their despicable, diabolical, appalling actions, their unethical behavior, because God's laid it out. They're going to Sheol. They wrote themselves a ticket directly to Sheol. I can't change that. I don't want to change that. They can't change it now. It's over. There has to be a consequence, and there is, for getting in the way and speaking against those that God has chosen, not only to fulfill his plan of salvation, but to convey it as well. God told us quite some time ago in the Torah that he was going to choose people and speak through them, and that he was going to designate and make known those he was going to communicate through, and told you a lot about this job that I'm doing now and that Dowd has done as well. And so you can ignore us. Your soul will dissipate into nothingness. You can fight us, and you have earned an express ticket to Sheol, just as this says. Or you can trust what we're saying. You can go and read the books. You can listen to these programs. You can do your own validation. You can grow in knowledge and capitalize on it and end up in the covenant and in Shamayim with God, with heaven. That's your choice. 3 options. Which you choose is up to you. Now, this says that every Gentile nation and institution is responsible for leading people to Sheol because they disrespect God. So every Gentile institution and nation that would be labeled for disrespecting God would be those that erased his name. Judaism, Christianity, Islam, socialism, the MAGAs are all disrespectful of God. They have all led people away from Yahweh, away from Shamayim, and to Sheol, hell. So the subject here is defined as Rasha, a word which describes a prevalence of widespread criminal enterprise engaged in religious malfeasance. God uses Rasha to depict those who are wrong, both inappropriate and revolting, evil and wicked, corrupt and corrupting. The Rasha are misled and misleading in return. They are invalid, fraudulent, and unethical. They lead others astray and do so knowingly. To be Rasha is to be deceitful, corrupt, and ungodly. It depicts those who lack ethics and who are culpable of crimes against humanity, and particularly against Israel and the Jewish people. They are opposed to what is right. They have done and spoken things which are not only inappropriate, but they are confusing to the point that they are condemnable. Rasha has a face. Shaul is evidence of this. He is Paul, Muhammad, Allah, Jesus. Gentiles have a cause, disrespecting God, and a consequence, being dispatched to Sheol. This derogatory term is attributed to non-Yisraelite nations and institutions. Nations like America, institutions like the Roman Catholic Church, they are taking so many souls to Sheol because too many people act out in favor of them, supporting them. To support Donald Trump, for example, who is obviously demonically compromised. He is the corporeal manifestation of Satan. He is the great betrayer that the prophet spoke. To support him is to earn a ticket to Sheol. I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is. They have become errant and malicious with regard to God and his people, and so contemptible in their disrespect of Yahweh and Yisrael and Yahudym and the Towrah and the Bereth and the Masiach, the Ben Elohim. They're promoting this myth of a man becoming God. God's not a man. They're pretending that the death of their God had some impact on life. God can't be killed. What in the world is wrong with people? There was no Jesus living in the 1st century in the province of Yahudym. It's such an obvious fraud, and yet they promote it. I mean, there is no dumber book ever written than the Quran, and yet there are people who go off and kill for it. Why? Why are people this insane? God's not going to allow such people into heaven. He can't stand them here on earth. And for those who have acted out against his people because of these religions, look what Christianity did. It created the culture for the Holocaust. It is the reason for the shadows and the dehumanizing of Jews. It's the reason that anti-Semitism exists today. God's not going to look the other way. Their premeditated promotion of false gods has the real God condemning them. Yahweh's disdain for Gentile nations and institutions, swayed by Shaul Paul's toxic diatribes in the Christian New Testament, and his poisonous scribbles, as well as the non-Yisraelite individuals who are Rasha wrong, is not only the driving force behind this Mizmowr, this psalm, which Dowd is trying to get your attention and saying, don't be part of those things. This is the consequence. Leave them so that you're not dragged into hell with them. So consider this a prophetic warning against the stupidity of replacement theology that is the foundation of Christianity, and especially the religious and political manifestation of Babylon, which is the Roman Catholic Church religiously and politically, the United States. Well, the operative verb in this statement, it was shub, which means to turn, and thus describes having one's course changed, either altered or swayed by compulsion or choice. And in this case, it is by Shaul, Paul, and to Sheol, hell. That's a dire warning for Gentiles, their nations, and their institutions, regardless of whether you render Shaul as the person Yahweh called the plague of death, Paul, and the father of lies, and or Sheol, which is the place of eternal separation known as hell. Gentiles are influenced by one and headed to the other. Their rendezvous with God in judgment is going to be brief and highly unpleasant. So whether it's Paul's New Testament, Akiba's Talmud, Muhammad's Quran, or liberal man's progressive agenda, the result has been that the overwhelming preponderance of the world's population has become oblivious to Yahweh's name, his nature, his testimony, his family, his people, his plan, and those he has chosen to work with him. Humankind has been allowed to exercise free will, and in so doing has made a mess of things, and is going to get progressively worse over these next 7 years. Now, this is not intended to be a referendum on individual souls, but instead on human institutions, nations, and empires. Well, people are both good and bad, right and wrong. As a larger group, the larger the institution, the bigger the gang, the worse humanity becomes. So by contrast, the plight of those willing to receive deliverance, who consent to and accept the offer of assistance, will not be forgotten. For this exception on behalf of those who are responsive, it will not be forestalled, it will not be squandered forever. So that was 9:18. The difference between the experience in Sheol versus Shamayim is as vast as 7 dimensions are from 1. Sheol is 1-dimensional. Shamayim is 7. As extreme as volition is to incarceration. As vast as the ultimately expansive and liberating is from the infinitesimally small and confining. And yet, one word may be all which separates them. Ana, responsiveness. That's why I have this job. Long ago, and often throughout time, I've been responsive. I've been willing to reply when God has asked. Doesn't need a lot from us, does he? We have been invited to attend the Moed Mikre, and our reply leads to our participation and to the benefits of the Bereth Covenant. Collectively, our answer to them, to the Bereth and to the Moed, opens heaven's door. And it does so for the Ibonim, those willing and desirous of accepting such assistance. This perspective on the Torah's central theme has long been forgotten, indeed squandered, lost under the onslaught of religious edicts and laws. But this will not always be the case. Soon, there will be a revival of expectations and a time of responsiveness. Father and son are reuniting on a date that is certain, and they will be offering reconciliation to those who are willing to accept their offer. All of this will play out on the greatest show on earth on Towrah, leading to their return on Kippurim. One of the most interesting internal studies of Jews, particularly at the time Christians and Judaism were fermenting, involves the Ebionites who were mentioned in this last statement. They're ethnic Jews who base their identity on Ebonom, which is being responsive. We know very little about them, but what we do know is subject to considerable religious malfeasance. To their credit, they were resolutely Torah observant, and they recognized that Hamashiach had come to fulfill Passover, Pesach. And as a result, they were overtly hostile to Peter and Paul. They rejected everything these men wrote and said. They are the only reason that we have some record of what Dowd, as the Messiah and as the upcoming Passover lamb, revealed during the Sermon on the Mount and later during the Olivet Discourse. Two speeches that happen to be the longest in the New Testament, and they're both overtly condemning of the religion of Christianity. But they made it in because, well, Matthew is a study in plagiarism. He plagiarized from three sources, from Mark, from Luke, which 70% of the book came, and the remaining 25 to 30% came from the Ebonim, who gave him the Olivet Discourse and the Sermon on the Mount, both delivered by Dowd, retained by the Ebionites. And this is because, well, they were largely right. They were opposed to almost every other faction in the Jewish community. And while viciously and relentlessly attacked by Shaul Paul as Judaizers, ultimately it was Rabbi Akiva who destroyed them for being opposed to his creation of rabbinical Judaism and for protesting against the false Messiah of Bar Kokhba that brought Jews to their knees, caused the diaspora, and was responsible for the land being renamed Palestine. So Yahweh is not forgetting his chosen people, reminding Yahudym that he still cares about them and that he is committed to liberating them from ongoing abuse, the abuse that men have heaped upon them, particularly Christians, and under the practice of Judaism as well. That's the thrust behind this prophecy. Without exception, we can confidently expect everything Yahweh has promised to be fulfilled. And this remains especially true for the Israelites because they have been the recipients of Yah's promises. But please note the caveat. This positive outcome is directed towards the Ebinon. It's Ebion, all things pursuant to the Eb and the hand of God. Those who seek liberation and yearn for a better life, who are open and willing to accept what God is offering. So this is one of the many places where the actionable root speaks as loudly as the noun derived from it. Ebion is from Abba, which is to earnestly desire acceptance. God's offer is open to everyone, but only those who accept will benefit. So this reads, your desire is to arise, to take a stand, and to encourage Yahweh. Do not allow mortal man to prevail by becoming controlling, oppressive, and overbearing. The Gentile institutions must be judged upon your appearance. Psalm 9:19. So the religious and political ways of man are indelibly intertwined, according to this inspired text, and they're debilitating. This must end for heaven on earth to begin. So recognize that the one making this request of Yahweh is Dowd, our Messiah and King. And as such, Father and Son are not coming back to redeem mankind, but instead to thwart the human religious and political schemes of mankind before they destroy the planet. So this statement pits the family of man against the Covenant and Dowd, against his people, Yahudym, and against the family of God, Yisrael. and the bereth. Now, that's profoundly important. So this statement also provides a refutation of the counterproductive notion found in today's Christian New Testament. Oh, judge not, lest you be judged. Since God is taking a stand against the schemes of mortal men, since he is judging the Gentiles, we would be right to do the same. It is only by exercising good judgment and by being discerning. This was when Mai and Mishpat was combined, and I shared with you that it's from Mai, which means to ponder the implications of, and Shaphat, to judge. God's encouraging that in us. It is what leads us to Yada Yahweh. So Gentiles estranged from Yahweh and opposed to Israel will not endure God's return. Whether they be counted among Christians, Muslims, or socialists, conspirators, or caste-imposing Hebrew or Hindus, they will be seen as an impediment to peace upon his return for his people. As part of Goyim nations and institutions, they remain estranged and will remain so. As mere mortals, they will not survive. The Messiah is clearly not amused by their religion or their politics, their militaristic stance, or their conspiratorial ways. He would ask of Yah, it is my choice and your decision to constitute and impose upon them a sense of dread and fear of the disconcerting revelation, Yahweh, that the Gentiles realize that they are mortal. Please pause and reflect upon this. Psalm 9:20. In a way, Christians have been right about one thing all along. God is coming for their church. It's just that he's going to annihilate it. There are only two ways to get out of this life alive, one good, the other bad. Those whose souls are not extinguished will either spend eternity in Shamayim with Dowd or in Sheol with Shaul. They are either Sadak right or Rasha wrong. So prior to composing these translations, I was unaware that the initial Mizmowr were all written prophetically of Dowd's role in the fulfillment of the Moedim, from Pesach to Sukkah to the last days. That between Kippurim and Sukkah, there will be a time of conflict. Actually, I think it's mostly going to take place on Towrah. Between Yahudym and Goyim. In fact, that 7 years of conflict begins this Shabuah, the 22nd of May of 2026, and continues through Towrah, the 24th of September 2033. It's going to be dreadful. And it's going to be very contentious. Jews against Jews and Yahudym against Goyim. And many are going to die. And the banner of chaos is going to be waved by none other than Donald Trump, who is the corporeal manifestation of Hasatan. This is religion and politics against the very covenant that God intended. So that's the conclusion of the 9th Mizmowr. So as our custom has been throughout this process, let's reconsider Dowd's statements without interruption, and that'll be the close of our program. It begins to the enduring guide and everlasting director upon the death of a son, a Mizmowr, a melody and lyrics of Dowd the beloved. I express my appreciation to Yahweh with my whole heart and my best judgment. I want to recount in writing all of your wonderful deeds and amazing revelations. Yes, the son that will offer his life makes it possible for Dowd to return as king with Yahweh, taking place on Towrah as the Adam of Parah, just 7 years from now. And that is what he is celebrating. It's one of the great events in the history of humankind, and Dowd wants to express his appreciation for it. And he wants to recount it, which he is doing now in writing. I will rejoice and jubilantly express my admiration, celebrating with you. I want to sing to your godly name. This is important because Dowd is the one who is offering to fulfill Pesach with his Bashar body, and then fulfill Matzah entering Sheol to remove our guilt with his Nefesh soul. And through this enormously courageous and compassionate act, Dowd is also realizing that he did not act alone, that there will be another. And he is celebrating the fact that that other restores his resume, restores his reputation, makes it possible for him to return as king, works to assure that there is a mortal remnant to be there when he returns, that there will be a homecoming. And he is giving credit and showing his appreciation for that. With the turning away of my enemies, those with animosity and rancor towards me, they will stumble back as they were expelled from your presence. During Towrah, when all of this takes place, Yahweh is going to rid the world, the entire planet, of those in opposition to Yisrael, to Dowd, to Yahweh, to Yahudym. Means that all traces of the religious will be gone, the conspiratorial, the anti-Semitic, the overtly political. For you have acted upon and engaged in my decision-making process regarding my means to resolve disputes and my ability to judge between and distinguish between right and wrong. You have established the approach to the seat of honor and authority, and you have rendered the right decision and have judged fairly, being rational and just. That seat of honor is Dowd's throne. It's the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. It's going to be as brilliant as the sun upon Dowd's return with Yahweh. You will rebuke and recommend and reprimand, convict and censure the Goyim Gentiles. You will, in a moment in time, expel and exterminate those who are misleading and mistaken, the guilty and wrong. This certainly doesn't give much room for a Gentile church, does it? This says that the Goyim are wrong with their institutions. Therefore, the Roman Catholic Church, which is the largest of them, is wrong. Therefore, nations of Gentiles, like the most powerful would be the United States, currently the economic engine of the world would be China, the most successful at weapons of war today would be Russia. It says that they're all wrong. These nations are going to cease to exist. They're anti-Yahweh, as well as the institutions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. There's nothing wrong with the ethnicity of Goyim. It's their institutions. It's their nations that have been so hostile to Yahweh, to Yisrael, to Yahudym. Their names and designations you will have blotted out forevermore, including their testimony. There will be no New Testament, no Gospels, no Zohar, no Talmud, no Quran, no Communist manifesto, no political agendas or platitudes. All gone. All of it has to be wiped away for Yahweh to reestablish the conditions that existed in Eden over the entire earth for us to celebrate 1,000 years of camping out together. As a result, the adversary will cease and be finished. He's going to be incarcerated and held accountable beginning on the 24th of September of 2033 as part of the festivities of Yom Teruah. All in a state of ruin, deserted and wasted forever. Additionally, you will uproot and destroy cities and shrines and temples such that the remembrance of them ceases to exist. For God to usher in the conditions that were experienced in the garden, transforming the whole world to that kind of a pristine opportunity, all traces of religion, politics, militarism, conspiracy, and anti-Semitism must go. That is what's being said here. You can count on it. 7 years from now, there won't be a trace of Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Marxism, socialism, communism, MAGAs, none of it, conspiratorialism. It's all gone. So then, Yahweh, he lives forevermore, established, establishing, I should say, the eternal dwelling place for his seat of honor. His seat of honor is Dowd's throne. It's the mercy seat of the Ark of the Covenant. On behalf of those who exercise good judgment regarding the way to resolve disputes, 9:7. If you want to be among the few who are considered covenant, who enter Yahweh's loving embrace, then you will need to benefit from that seat of honor. You need to know whose designation it belongs to and how it is prepared for your arrival, with the smattering of the blood of a bull and a goat on it. And who is that bull? Who is that goat? You need to understand these things and capitalize upon them if you're going to benefit. Then he himself will execute judgment on this perverse and confused world, doing so correctly and fairly, judging the nations and the people who are religious and political in a straightforward and equitable manner, in conformance with the established standard. Mizmowr 9:8. There will be accountability. I mean, you can, as I say, do one of three things with your soul. You can allow it to continue to be misled by social media, by politics, by conspiracy, by religion, and your soul will cease to exist when you die, which will be within the next 7 years. You can choose to oppose what I'm saying, or oppose me, oppose Dowd, oppose Yisrael, oppose Yahweh, and work on behalf of some political agenda, militant agenda, conspiratorial agenda, or religious agenda. And your soul will be sent to Sheol for eternal incarceration. Or you can accept what we're sharing with you. Recognize that Dowd is the Messiah, the Son of God, that Yahweh is God's name, that he has one covenant, and that covenant has 5 conditions and 5 benefits, and the benefits are delivered through your attendance and response to the Moedim. You need to know what those things are and how to capitalize upon them. And you can listen to these programs and learn that, or go to Yahowah.com and read the books. Again, not trying to sell you anything. They're all free. You can choose to capitalize and benefit from them or not. It's totally up to you. Therefore, Yahweh exists as a safe and secure place to dwell for those who have been harassed, afflicted, and slandered. A safe and secure place of refuge as troubling times approach. Those troubling times, this is Mizmowr 9:9, begin in just 100 days. Then those who know and acknowledge Yahweh, your name, they will trust and rely upon, because indeed you have not and will not abandon or forsake them. You will never abandon those who seek to know you, Yahweh. If you want to Yahowah, then you should go to Yahowah.com. Seriously, it's pretty straightforward. You want to Yahowah, know Yahweh, then go to Yahowah.com, or the short version of it is Yahowah.com. It means to know Yahweh. That is all we're trying to do. We're trying to familiarize those who are not religious, who are not overtly political, who are not conspiratorial, who are not antagonistic towards Jews or towards God, and who are not overtly militaristic. We are trying to provide the information you need to Yahowah. Again, what you do with it is up to you. My job was strictly to share it with you, to come to know it, and to provide the answers should you want them. Yahowah.com. Should you want to sing, or you should want to sing as a result to Yahweh, who establishes a dwelling place on Tsiyon among the signs that are posted along the way. Of your own volition, choose to report among the people and family what he has done. You're not going to be part of this covenant if your goal is, I won't be saved. Tell me what I need to do to be saved. And then expect somebody to spoon feed you what you need to know. It would be totally counterproductive and inappropriate. Those people who say, well, just tell me what I need to know. No, I'm not going to do that, because then you might act upon it and be a deadbeat that would make eternity worse for the rest of us. God's not trying to save everybody. I'm not trying to save everybody. Listen, I'm fine with the idea of there being 100 people that enter Shamayim in the seventh dimension. God would be fine with that. It's making sure that the people that are there, the souls that are there, know who Yahweh is, love his name, adore his son, appreciate what his son has accomplished for us, appreciate the sacrifice that are manifest through and the benefits of the 7 Moedim. They love and enjoy everything associated with that Bereth covenant. And as a result of being observant, closely examining and carefully considering the things of God, they have responded and made a contribution. They're not deadbeats. They don't have a sense of entitlement. They're not dependents. They're making the covenant better. They're making the relationship better. They're making the world a better place to live in by acting, by engaging, by doing. And when they make a mistake, when they trip and fall, they get back up, they correct what they have said that is wrong, and they learn from it and go forward. You need to engage. You need to be among those getting it done. Indeed, he who accounts for blood is mindful of them. He will not overlook or forget these cries of distress, these screams of pain of the miserably afflicted. God can't be just if he just forgives. This idea that he will forgive everybody, that he wants to be forgiven, it's just nonsense. He doesn't. And it makes it clear. This is Psalm 9:12. If you've been associated with promoting Islam that has been so lethal to Jews and has killed 200 million people, and you claim that is something good that you're promoting, and you're in trouble. If you are an advocate for Christianity and all it's done to demonize and dehumanize Jews and lead to the deaths of Jews in the pogroms and in the Holocaust, then you're in trouble with God. If you're conspiratorial and are abusing God's people, trying to blame them for all manner of things, then you're in serious trouble with God. You need to get your act together. I'm not inviting you to heaven. I don't want you to read these books. I don't want you to learn from them. But I'm advising you to stop doing what you're doing, because rather than your soul simply ceasing to exist, it's going to spend all eternity in Sheol. Your choice. So you have chosen to be generous and to favor me, Dowd says to Yahweh. Yahweh, by choice, you have seen my tremendous dedication to accomplishing the mission and being a witness, and my frustration over the abuse that I've endured as a result of responding and accomplishing the goal from those who dislike and who shun me, as those who will also be those who lift me up and honor me from the gates of death. You are going to be on one side or the other of the door that Dowd has provided the means to open. He fulfilled Passover, which is the doorway to life. You can accept what he did by knowing what he did and appreciating the purpose of Passover and Dowd's fulfillment of it, and therefore renouncing the myth of Christianity and of the mythos of Judaism and of Islam, and accept what Dowd did. Benefit from it, capitalize on it, and you're on the right side of that door of life. Also acknowledging what happened on Matzah, because it's even more important than becoming immortal on Pesach, because you will be immortal, but unfortunately on the wrong side of that door if you don't have your guilt removed from you. So he's celebrating the benefit and also acknowledging the opposite, that there is a line drawn in the sand, and it was drawn with blood on Passover as the first day of Chag Matsah. As a result, I have chosen to recount and proclaim, providing a written record of all of your superlative accomplishments and adorable contributions, and a song of appreciation within the doorway of the open environs of Tsiyon, where these signs are posted along the way. I will take great pleasure in rejoicing and celebrating your liberation, deliverance, and salvation, which they accomplished in a collaborative effort. The Gentiles will have sunk down and have been embedded into the pit of destruction which they have fashioned. What is the most popular Gentile institution in world history? The Roman Catholic Church. What's the most powerful Gentile nation in history? It was Rome, and now it's the United States. They have dug a pit of their own destruction, which they have fashioned into impoverishing and the destructive trap of disinheritance, which they have concealed. Their feet, their stance, and their every step are captured in this trap that they have made. Mizmowr 9:15. Yahweh has become recognizable. He is knowable. There is Yahweh, by means to exercise good judgment and then engage based upon it. You can Yahweh by exercising good judgment. Reading the books at Yahowah.com. That's why they're there. That is what this prophecy is speaking about. And then once you have read them, then engage, act accordingly. Those guilty of being wrong, those who mislead and are misled, are ensnared. They're controlled by the deeds of their own hands. They have done this to themselves. Ponder the implications. 9:16. Those guilty of religious malfeasance unto Sheol, they will go, along with almost every Gentile nation and institution which disrespects God. What is the largest Gentile institution? May I remind you again? The Roman Catholic Church. What's the next largest? The community, the Ummah of Islam. What's the most powerful Gentile nation? Well, it was Rome, and now it's the United States. They all disrespect God. They won't say Yahweh's name. They won't acknowledge that it's Dowd, who is the Son of God, returning King and the Messiah, who is our Savior. By contrast, the flight of those who receive deliverance and who act upon this liberation and assistance, who are responsive, yearning for better, the Ibiyom, where they will not be forgotten. For this expectation on behalf of those who are responsive, they will not be forestalled. They will not have their lives squandered. Your desire is to arise, to take a stand, to establish, encouraging, while providing validation and proof. Yahweh, God, provided proof of his existence and his inspiration of the words that I'm reading through prophecy. You should know that. You should capitalize upon it. Do not allow mortal man to prevail by being controlling. That would be oppressive and religious. The ways that mortal man prevails through religion and prevails by being controlling and oppressive and overbearing is through religion and politics. Those are the two schemes of man in this regard. Gentile institutions, therefore, they're controlling schemes, they're oppressive schemes. Religion and politics must be judged. They must be condemned, and they will so by your appearance. You and I are in agreement in this, that it is best if you constitute and impose upon them a sense of dread and fear. You should. If you are religious, it doesn't matter if it's the caste system of the Hindu religion or the controlling nature of communism and socialism, or if it is the perverse nature and the controls that are imposed by Judaism, or this hellish abortion that is Christianity, or the satanic nature of Islam. If you are an advocate for one of these, you should be in dread, fearful of the realization that is born out of this instruction that Yahweh is providing, that the Gentiles realize that they are mortal, they are just men, and their souls will not continue. Pause now and reflect on this. From beginning to end, it is one consistent story, and it all exists for a single purpose, which is to call us home. I thank you for listening. I'm sorry we went a little longer than anticipated, but I knew we were near the end and wanted to conclude the 9th Mizmowr because it's actually the conclusion of Volume 1 of Coming Home. I look forward to commencing our review of Volume 2 of Coming Home as we continue this series. And for those that are interested, I'm spending most of my time, less time now on social media and more time translating and writing to stay ahead of where we are in our series on the final word picture that is now deep into the analysis of who wrote the 89th Mizmowr, when it was actually delivered, what it accomplished, and what it means to our lives today. It's the greatest song ever written, and I want to share more of that with you as we continue. So I'm spending much of my time working on that so we can make it part of the Yahowah vlog. Thank you for listening. Good day.